Chapter 12. Family. Mama was mending a shirt at the table when we walked through the door. She threw it down and ran to us, enveloping us both in her embrace and hugging us with all her might. "You made it," she said. "I was so afraid that my boys would never come back." As I hugged her tightly to me, the first thing I noticed was that I could feel every bone in her spine. She seemed shorter and slighter than she had been just a few weeks before. When she held us at arm's length, her face looked drier, grayer, like she'd aged 10 years in a matter of weeks. "Where's Tato?" I asked. She looked down at the floor and blinked back tears. "In the barn, working," she said. Something seemed off about the way she put it. "Come sit with me, Mama," said Slavko. "I've got so much to tell you." I left the two of them to chat and went out back to find Tato. He was in the barn, but he wasn't working. He was lying flat on his back in Silney's empty stall. His eyes were closed, and it looked like he was in a deep sleep. I knelt down beside him and gently brushed a bit of hair from his eyes. Gray hair. Had it been gray when we left? His eyes fluttered open, and when he saw it was me, he tried to sit up, but he couldn't. "I'm so glad you're home, son. Is Slavko here too?" "He is," I said. "He's inside talking to Mama." "What happened to you?" "They beat me up," he said. "Who did?" I asked. "Chort's men," he said. "They found our seed grain under the manure." "Oh no," I said. "We have nothing to plant then." "Does it matter?" he asked. "We've lost our land as well. It's owned by the coal house. It's their problem now. The only saving grace is that they didn't find Paulina's grain. That will be for eating now, not for planting." I settled in beside him and wrapped my arms around my knees. "Do you know the other problem the coal house will have?" I asked. He turned his head to me. "No, what?" "The Kharkiv tractor plant won't be making tractors for another year." Tato's eyes widened. He blinked slowly, then said, "No seed? No horses? No tractors? Half the farmers from Flavica are either dead or gone. How are they ever going to fill next year's grain quota?" "I don't know," I said, "but I don't want us to be here to find out either." "Not much hope of us getting out," he said, "and Tupolev never did get our grain money for us." I pulled the roll of paper rubles and set it on his chest. This might help. Tato's eyes widened when he saw the money. "I appreciate this, but look at me," he said. "I can't move." "Why are you lying in the barn instead of in the house?" I asked. "I can't get up onto the sleeping platform," he said, "and I'm not going to lie on the floor all day. At least this way your mother thinks I'm working in the barn." "Let me help you now that I'm home," I said, "starting now." I knelt beside him, and he wrapped his arms around my neck. I gently lifted him up to a sitting position, and then onto his feet. We walked slowly around the barn until his face was gray with fatigue. "That's much better," he said, although I didn't know whether to believe him or not. "Let's go into the house." It wasn't until that night's family dinner that I understood the full magnitude of our situation. Mama didn't put a serving dish on the table family style like she used to. Instead, she labeled each person's serving with precision into their waiting bowl. I regarded each person as Mama filled their bowl. Tato sitting upright now and trying to pretend he wasn't in pain, but his jaw was clenched tight and his face had a gray tinge to it. Yulia sitting primly beside Tato, wearing her young pioneer tie and her cherished linen pin with the English script. Why was she wearing her young pioneer uniform? I would have to talk to her about that. Slavko looking eager and happy as always. Auntie Paulina clutching an envelope, with Tanya on her knee. Tanya's hair when I left had been like pale yellow tufts of cotton, but it had grown a few centimeters and it was curly now. She grinned at me when she noticed me staring at her, so I blew her a kiss. As Mama ladled my supper, I stared down into my bowl. It was mostly hot water with a small boiled potato, 2 mushrooms, and a slice of onion. She also handed us each a small raw apple. "I'm sorry," she said, looking from me to Slavko. "We're quite low on supplies since the last food raid." "This is about the same as what we were eating at the tractor plant," said Slavko. Then he sniffed the bowl and smiled. "Although I must say you're a much better cook than Petro." "Let us give thanks for this food," said Mama, "and also for the fact that we're all together again." We bent our heads and Tato led us in prayer. After that, we ate in silence, and I let each morsel of potato stay on my tongue for as long as I could. I wanted this meal to last. I wanted this family togetherness to last. Once our bowls were empty, Tato said, "Boys, it's so good to have you back. Tell us about your time at the tractor factory." We regaled them with stories about the sheer size of the factory and how many people it took to build it and how Slavko and I got assigned to the brickworks. We told them about all the horses and all the people who had fled their villages to work at the site. We told them about all the foreigners, too, and how they were treated so well. When we finished, I pulled the roll of rubles out of my pocket and set it in the middle of the table. "We have a decision to make," I said. "What are we going to do with this money?" Auntie Paulina held up the letter. "I've got an answer from my cousins in Ternopil," she said. "It's a long journey and expensive, but they will give all of us refuge if we can get there." "Here are my thoughts," said Tato. "I can't travel. I can barely walk across the room. But I do agree that we need to escape. I say you all go and leave me here until I get better. I'll follow you when I can." Mama reached across the table and put her hand on top of Tato's. "I'm not leaving you," she said. "I'm the man of the house. I could order you to." Mama smiled at that. "I'd like to see you try." Tato was in no condition to travel, that was for sure. But even if he had been able to travel, the small amount of money that Slavko and I brought home wouldn't be enough to get us all to Ternopil. "What if Auntie Paulina and Tanya go?" I asked. "If they get to Ternopil, they'll be in a position to help the rest of us. Maybe by then, Tato's back will be better." Tato looked over to me and his shoulders relaxed just a little bit. "Good idea," he said. Then he looked at Slavko. "You should have a say in this too." "I agree with Niall," said Slavko. "Auntie and Tanya can clear the way for the rest of us." Tato took the roll of rubles and placed it in front of his sister-in-law. "I can't take this," said Paulina. "You should buy something for yourselves." "No," said Mama. "We will all feel so much better knowing that you and Tanya have escaped these bullies. And once you're safely across the border, you can start writing out the words of the folk songs that you still remember." "May I say something?" Yulia asked. All eyes were on her. "I'm not leaving," she said. "Not Flavica, anyway. I've signed up for the coal house on my own. I'll be moving there tonight." Mama held her hand to her heart. "Yulia," she said, "what has gotten into you?" "It's not what's gotten into me," said Yulia. "You are all traitors. I am bound by oath to report you when you commit treason. Abandoning Stalin's 5-year plan is an act of treason. I don't want to have to report my own family, so I ask that you stop talking about this right now." She stumbled out of her chair and stood up. "Please know that I love you. But I love Stalin, too." She fled out the door. I jumped up to go after her, but Tato said, "Don't. She hasn't been ours for a long time." "What do you mean by that?" I asked. "Who do you think told Chort about our hiding place for seed grain? Now that she's gone, we need to find a good place to hide Paulina's 3 remaining bags of grain so they don't get confiscated too." One bag of Auntie Paulina's grain got hidden in the floorboards of the windmill. Another bag was sealed within a false wall in the kitchen, and we used the third one for food, grinding it into flour with the hand mill.